Construction Coach here. This video, I'm going to take you on a start to finish journey on how I created this concrete countertop. This countertop cost me about $24 in concrete material and a bit of time for such a nice, amazing look. Alright, so my concrete countertops are going to kind of collide with the tile. So I'm about to tile up through here, so I thought I'd better set my cabinet, get my elevation line. I've got it marked here with the screw. I'm going to bring the plywood in for the support for the concrete countertop. Then I'm going to attach the flashing in the top to hold it all in. I reduced this banjo shape down quite a bit so that it won't crack. So let's take a look at that. This is too far, so I'm going to this new line. That's center of the toilet. This measurement to here, and then to here are the same. Cut plywood to front of gables, and the 2-inch steel will actually go underneath the plywood and stick out an inch further, creating an inch overhang. Well, I brought this countertop plywood in. Now my next objective is to kind of attach it to the gable, but not up here at the front, because I slide my 2-inch by 2-inch angle iron underneath, and then I screw it in, so that supports my form. In this area, I'm gonna have to create some dead men to kind of hold the form until I feel that it's got enough strength to remove the form. Okay, that's saying 100. Create like a little return corner. I'll pour my concrete underneath the tile. On top of this tile edge, the mirror is going to be right flush with the face of the tile, and it goes to about here. Then I've got 3 rows to the ceiling. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get the mirror to fit in flush with the tile, leaving a 1/16 gap all the way around so that I can grout the mirror in, and it's going to appear flawless. This is how I've been bonding the concrete to the 1/2-inch plywood. I use 1¼ floor screws on about a 4-inch grid, sometimes tighter in skinnier areas. Then I'm using rebar tie wire to connect all the screws together, creating like a mesh. Installing the touchless toilet on a quick break here. For details on that install, check out the American Standard touchless toilet install in the playlist. Using the American Standard template, I'm able to cut my 2-inch angle to the perfect sizes to frame out the opening for the sink. After cutting to the perfect sizes, I will use my square and some wafer screws to set the form of the sink opening in the perfect position. I will use some tuck tape to seal the corners. I find it makes the form easier to strip out at the end as well, to just have some continuous tape all the way around. I'm going to bring the American Standard template back in just to check one last time, making sure that the sink opening is in the exact spot. Here's the American Standard Boulevard undermount sink. One last thing before I can pour is that I need to set the brass inserts that will hold the sink up underneath the concrete countertop. While I'm sorting out the brass inserts, let's talk materials used for this project. I use 1/2-inch plywood for the base. I'm using 2-inch by 2-inch 20 gauge steel for the form front edge. Then I pour the concrete PSI 6000 from Quikrete. I'm using a feather patch slurry floor patch for the nosing. Then I'm using a Surecrete white stain over gray. And then I'm going to finish everything off with a Surecrete XS327 two-part sealer. Alright, this countertop is looking ready to go. I've got my brass inserts here drilled through. They're going to get cast into the concrete. Now I know they're not going to move because I got the bolt up into the top of them through the plywood. Got my sink cut out perfect. You saw when I laid the template on. Sitting good. I've got the measurements across here. All this stuff's attached. Put a couple legs in here, a couple dead men to make sure that this doesn't sag down. And I also use that to make sure that I was hitting all the way across. So like sitting really good there. These are just barely in there to the exact heights so that when I pour the concrete on, they can't go down, but they'll remain perfect. And these are some nice clean levels, like to be able to go all the way across like that, across the sink, and it's all touching is perfect. So now all I'm gonna do is put a masking tape across here to create this pour line. This first tile I notched. I was gonna do that all the way across, but then I decided that I was just gonna pour the concrete into the tile down this way. So it's gonna go underneath the tile here, a little bit underneath the tile there, but then I'm gonna have a pour line across that. So figure we're gonna use at least 2 bags. So here's a look under the formwork. You can see I've got my screw bolts up into the brass inserts. Everything's fastened nice, holding that steel angle in at the edging. And this is just a quick example of what those inserts are for. This is in a different bathroom where I popped the sink up, but should have the same great results here. And the only thing that's changed from the start is that black flashing I had on the wall, I ended up removing that. It wasn't going to be strong enough to hold the banjo. So actually behind the toilet tank and behind the tile, I've got some 1-inch steel brackets. They go up 8 inches and out like 4. So I put 2 of them along that banjo so that if someone presses down on it, it shouldn't crack out. One final thing to address before the pour is setting some knockouts for the faucet. I'm doing a really widespread look, so I am actually lining my holes up with the outside edge of the sink form, putting in a sleeve, and I'm going to elevate those to the exact pour height so that when I pour, they are going to remain in their exact position and keep it so easy for me to put the faucets in after. Time to pour. This is my favorite part. This countertop was 2 bags, PSI 6000. Cost me $24 in concrete material for this one. I've poured the 2 bags in. Now I'm just leveling them off the best I can. I'm going to tap my forms, tap inside my sink form, and really make sure that the concrete is agilated against the form so that there's minimal honeycombing. Now I've left it for like an hour and I'm coming back in to use my finer trowel to give it some smooths. I'm just looking for the flattest I can get it because I still got some prep work before my finish to get that exposed aggregate look. I do sand the top layer off a little bit in areas so that I can expose some of the aggregate before I put my white stain over the concrete, and then start my finishing process with the sealer that's going to keep these tops looking good forever. This is about a week after the pour. I went back to the big city and let it sit for a while. I find that if you let the concrete gain its full strength before you strip the forms, you have a better chance of not cracking the edge or wrecking the softer concrete, or green concrete, that's what we call it in the industry. But take your time when you're stripping, and the more time that you can leave it before you do that, the better. Here's a close-up of the nosing after I've stripped the forms. There's some honeycombing going on there, and you guys saw how hard I was tapping the forms after my pour. It's just inevitable if you mix to the requirements that they want you to stick with, that it's going to be a bit of a thicker mix, so it's going to have air pockets like that. The alternative is wetting the concrete down more than it should be, but then you lose the strength. So I recommend patching it 2 times. I just use a feather patch flooring kind of patch material. I found it to bond very well, and sand, and the color of it is beautiful like once you sand through it. One thing I noticed though is that you have to do a double coat because it does shrink back. So here I am doing the second coat. I'm using a cordless orbital sander with vacuum attached to it to clean up the nosing now and sand the top surface just to bring out the aggregate a little bit. Here's the finished dry mock-up. Got the sink just floating there and the faucets kind of loosely put in. And I'm just getting ready to start the staining process and wanted to make sure that everything was working out perfect before I carried on. Time to start the finishing process. I'm installing Surecrete white water-based stain on top of the raw concrete. Then I will swirl it around with the sponge until I get the desired look. Alright, so I've mixed 2 parts of this, 3 parts of this, mixed it together for 3 minutes, and let it set for 10. Now I'm supposed to add 7 parts of water, mix for another couple of minutes, and then it's ready to use. This one's the most water. This first primer coat, you add the most water. Through the other coats, you reduce the amount of water. And after you're done about your third, or your primer and then 2 coats, that's where I stopped. It leaves it with a really nice, like rubbery feel, like leathered granite almost. Like if you felt leathered granite, it's kind of like leathery feeling. That's what this does. And man, like if you clank like glass on concrete, it's really like kind of loud. But when you put this sealer on and you get to finish the 2 coats, when you put plates and cups on the concrete, it's kind of muffled by like the thickness of the coating. So I really recommend, like, if you're gonna do concrete countertops, don't cheap out on the finish. Like, don't just get concrete driveway sealer and put it on, because you will not get the same effect as what I'm gonna show you guys right now. So I'm gonna put my 7 parts of water in here. I recommend when mixing and using the sealer that you run some fans and make sure you have great ventilation. Using a foam roller, I will apply a generous amount of the primer coat to the concrete countertop. You're really looking to oversaturate it, so keep going until it won't take it in anymore. Then wipe everything smooth. Now I'll just let the final coat dry, and in a couple days I'll put the finished plumbing through. If interested in anything else from this bathroom, check the cabin build playlist for full details. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna get back to what I like doing. See you on the next one.